Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Manu Jamal, and I would like to start by welcoming you all for today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Manu Jamal, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I'm also joined by my co-host and co-moderator, Ms. Sadia Malik, who will be assisting me in managing the webinar. So, so over the past few years, the firm has been offering training programs for law students and have started a series of webinars. So today's webinar is going to be very special because we are joined by a very special and esteemed guest, Mr. Muhammad Ali Salimi, who is proficient in managing dispute resolution across various sectors, including commercial, corporate, and civil areas. He has collaborated with known leading firms in Pakistan on transaction and constitutional litigation. He holds an LLM degree in intellectual property rights from the University of California, Berkeley, and he has done his specialization in company and commercial law from University of London. His extensive experience in litigation, corporate law, and intellectual property law makes him uniquely positioned to address today's topic, which is going to be GDPR, technology, innovation, and navigating data protection challenges in Pakistan. So before we get started, I request you all to please mute your mics and please turn off your videos. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can ask them in the chat box or raise your hand during the session. Now, without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Ms. Sadia Malik to kick things off.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mahnur, for the wonderful introduction. It's an honor to co-host with you and engage in this crucial discussion. Sir, it's a privilege to have you with us today. Assalamu alaikum, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Walaikum assalam. Pleasure is all mine.
Okay, sir. Before delving deep into the GDPR compliance, I would like you to let the audience know about what GDPR is. Basically, we are all eager to hear from you, sir.
So, assalamu alaikum, guys. Thank you for having me. So, first of all, as eloquently introduced by Mahnur and Sadia, let me just delve into the topic at hand. So, GDPR is something which is very crucial, especially in light of what's happening around the world, especially in terms of what the blue chip companies. Blue chip companies are basically this tech and innovation companies which are working all across the globe. So this is something which is quite unique and quite prevalent these days. GDPR is basically data protection regulations which were introduced in the Europe by European Union in 2018. So what it basically entails is that the data of all these tech companies has to be protected, because during the time that we are privileged to be working and using all this technology at hand, the data is very crucial. As you all might be aware, that data is all the semblance of something very crucial. Our data is what basically makes all those algorithms work, whether it is Facebook, whether it is any socials, whether it is any tech industry. So what usually happens is that all this data, even AI itself, artificial intelligence, uses and sifts this data which is available to it. So it basically runs on it. And again, if you would understand its importance, even when you are conducting economic transactions through banks, whether it is traditional bank, whether you're using bitcoins or any other electronic currency. So the data which is used by those companies is so very seminally important in this time and age, that if you can't protect it and you don't have any ecosystem to protect it, then basically you are going nowhere. So basically, it entails summing. If I use it in a sentence, if I want to sum it, it basically protects the data of the individual and also the companies. So it's basically an ecosystem in which this all happens. So GDPR is basically the data protection scheme which was introduced by the European Union. And again, a lot of countries they caught whiff of it, and all the major tech industries and the countries in the world are actually GDPR compliant, because if they are not GDPR compliant, they can't actually work. Then basically you have no future in the tech industry. So in short, this is basically the protectionary framework which is regulated, and the most seminal work in this arena is basically done by the European Union and in the shape of GDPR, which is data protection regulation. I hope I answered the question, Sadia.
Thank you for the detailed explanation, sir. Now that we have the basic understanding of what GDPR is, sir, could you please kindly enlighten the audience on the significance of GDPR in the IT sector of Pakistan in context of the export-oriented trade?
Yes. So a very important question, as Sadia has rightly pointed it out, and I've tried to explain it in the introduction. So, participants, I would really like to inform you the what's the importance and how Pakistan in the whole scheme of things, our tech industry comes into play. So, the compliance is important. So the importance is such that if you don't have an ecosystem, it's just like if that a plant needs air, oxygen, and water to operate and produce oxygen. So if you don't have GDPR compliance, then you basically don't exist in the international arena. So whatever work you're doing, for instance, if you are sifting a data, and if you're a tech company, and if you're, as we know that since we're living in a global world, so you don't think local and you don't operate local. All the tech industries and tech innovations align. So whatever work you are doing, for instance, if any Pakistani company is making software or a international tech company, if private industry is not compliant of for instance, if I give you an example, there are two very major important companies of Pakistan. One is Systems International, and one is TRG. There are also many other success stories in Pakistan. So they on their own make sure that the data protection regulatory scheme is available with them and they are complying, because if they are not, they can't actually work with any of the blue chip international tech companies, because it's a requirement, and if they don't do it, the other tech companies, they're heavily fined. And there are examples. One may quote the fine that was implemented on Facebook, for that matter WhatsApp even, and even Meta. They were heavily fined by the European Union in terms of, I guess, the fines, accumulated value of fine was somewhere around 4 billion to be exact. If those tech companies, they were found not to be compliant with certain data regulatory schemes. So it is the need of the hour that Pakistan make some headways in this field, and the regime, the overall incubation, the tech industry incubation in Pakistan, it should be regulated by data protection laws as well. So my colleague Ahmed Gilani is sharing a few slides over here that me and my team, including Mahanur and Sadia, have prepared diligently for the past 2 days. We all have been working. And again, I would also like to give credit to a GDP compliant officer in Czechoslovakia, Mr. Vakar Ahmed, who helped us compile certain data, because as I said, Pakistan, we don't have officially, we don't have any means to deduce what kind of data breach or what kind of mechanism internationally is working, because there is no GDPR regulation or scheme in Pakistan. So I gleaned help from my colleagues in Europe, which basically they helped us with some of very crucial information. So I would also like to give credit to them. So as you can see, Mr. Gilani, there are 4 or 7 major schemes of GDPR principles. It is right in front of this the screen of our audience. So one is basically data subject rights, which means what is personal data and what data would be protected by this scheme. So there are generally 7 principles. You can see the slide in front of you. I won't bog my audience with the complexities, but the major premise of GDPR compliance is that the data breach should not occur. If it has occurred, it should be notified and it should be rectified as soon as possible, and there should be transparency in this matter. And another very important aspect that I would like to lay down for all my audience over here, especially this is the month of November. As you guys might know that US was going through very important elections. So I would like to add over here that last elections, there was a controversy that their elections, US elections were being manipulated. And you all might know the incident of Cambridge Analytica, and there are many documentaries on it, that how the big tech companies used the information and basically persuaded the people at large in the United States to vote on certain ethnic lines and partisan lines, and it was heavily influenced. And there was a commission, there was a hearing, a congressional hearing, in which tech giants were brought into the Senate, and there were congressional hearings on it. So if you guys are interested, you guys can look into that. So this is the importance of how data is being used and manipulated. And in Europe, there is heavy compliance, but all the rest of the world is catching up on it.
Sir?
US has also, especially California, the state of California, since US is a federation, every state has their own unique law. So the Silicon Valley and all the tech industries in California are complying with their own state legal protection of data protection. But overall, there is a dearth of any federal legislation on this matter. And hopefully in the coming future, even USA would incorporate a federal data protection law due to the backlash that they're facing. So this is the importance of GDPR framework. I hope I've addressed that question.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Up till now, we've discussed about the significance of compliance with the GDPR rules. So now moving towards the non-compliance, could you explain about the penalties for that?
Ji, ji.
Given
So
that the heavy
in
fines
terms
up
of
to 20 million
penalties,
euros or
as you can
4%
see,
of the
that
global
the global
revenue,
scope, as
how
Mr.
critical it
Gilani has
is
aptly shared
for
in front of you.
Pakistani companies to ensure compliance when dealing with the European Union markets? Could you please explain?
Manur, I can't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
Sir, can you hear me now? Am I audible? Hello?
Ji, ji, ji.
Hello, am I audible, sir? So I was saying, now moving towards the non-compliance, could you please explain about the penalties for that, given the heavy fines up to 20 million euros or 4% of the global revenue? How critical it is for Pakistani companies to ensure compliance when dealing with the European Union markets?
Gee, sorry guys, there was a disruption. I don't know what's the issue. Unfortunately, we are discussing the tech incubations in Pakistan, and unfortunately, the situation of internet is not very ideal in our country. So I don't know what just happened. My video got distorted. So, Manur, can you please repeat your question? You were
Yeah.
talking about fines. Can you please repeat that so that I can address it appropriately? Ji,
Yes,
Manur.
yes, sure. Given the heavy fines up to 20 million euros or 4% of global revenue, how critical it is for Pakistani companies to ensure compliance when dealing with European Union markets?
It's very crucial. It's one of the most crucial things, and I think the tech industry has also lobbied. And if I give you an example of certain tech companies which I named, I don't want to sound that I'm basically endorsing those companies, but the companies which I just named in Pakistan, and majority of the tech companies, they are on their own complying with those data protection schemes. So it is absolutely critical, because if we don't comply with all these things, so many the most important aspect is that cyber security. Because if you don't protect your data, and if you don't have a data protection officer, and if you don't know where your data is leaking out, you're making your whole system or a law on cybersecurity, it is not administratively workable if you don't have a data protection scheme, because it's a whole incubation and it's a whole ecosystem. So one very important element of that ecosystem is missing in Pakistan, which is data protection. So I hope I answered the question. Apart from fines, how data protection is really important.
Also on that note, sir, there was a recent case in 2023, IMY case basically, which is a Swedish data protection authority, right? So in this case, IMY ordered four companies, Coop,
Participants,
CDO, and
can you
Agents,
hear me?
Industry, and Tele2. Just, yes, yes, we can hear you, sir. Am I audible to you? Hello? Yes. I think there's some problem. You're audible. I think there is some problem in from sir side.
Gee, guys, again, there was a distortion. I answered Manu's last question of why is it so important, and why the whole ecosystem has to be there in order to safeguard the rights, and actually to advance in this sector. So I hope it was clear. Ji Manu.
I think there's some distortion again.
Data protection bill का हाँ ये आ गया slide आ गया
Ji, ji, ji. Ji, if you see the Pakistan IT industry overview, if I can give you an overview of this IT industry, so Pakistan depends a lot on our IT exports. There was the other survey done, and I think it's in our slides as well. There is a further potential of 30 to 40% more increase in our IT industries if we basically make Pakistan compliant in this data protection scheme. So again, in during the COVID time, as you can see, even the system which we were using, the software which we were using, Zoom, it was non-existent, and now it is one of the most important major blue chip companies in the world. During this time period, especially in COVID, a majority of our foreign remittance and was being relied on these tech industries. And again, tech is the future of the world. It goes hand in glove with technology and innovation, because at the end of the day, whatever machinery you're using, whatever system you're using, there is a software and there is a whole system which on which it is being run. And data is, again, it's very sensitive. um, you name it, anything, banking industry, your basically agriculture industry, uh, your grid systems, everything is working through a software. And if you can't protect the data, um, everything will go haywire from there. So again, if you want to do something in terms of the IT or tech industry, data protection is very, very important. It's just that, for instance, we as lawyers, if we're talking amongst ourselves, if we don't compile whatever data we have of our cases, or the drafts of our opinion and our work, then basically we will be losing all our edge in any market. So this is as simple as that.
Thank you, sir. We have talked a lot about the significance of the data protection. I'm sure that the audience would also like to know about the Personal Data Protection Bill. Given that the Personal Data Protection Bill is still at the draft stage and there's no dedicated authority, sir,
Exactly.
what do you think the government should take steps to prioritize the enforcement and implementation?
There was a bill which was, I guess, introduced 2 years back, 2022 2023. So it is quite vocal, and it is basically, uh, as many other international compliances, it is tailor made according to GDPR, the European compliances. So, what I would suggest to the people at the helm of affairs through our webinar is that, see, we have to see our needs and our requirements. For instance, India is basically a success story, and they have actually mirrored their own IT industry in line with the Silicon Valley. The Bangalore area, it is called their own, in their own backyard. It's their Silicon Valley, and a lot of tech industries, for that matter, are working over there. And in fact, majority of the CEOs of all the major, most of the major tech companies, the CEOs, they belong from India. So what they did was they tailored made it according to their own needs. So they made it a sort of a free market economy in terms of data protection. And so I would really suggest that all the stakeholders should sit together, and all the leading tech
Sir,
industrialists.
this also ties up to
जी
my next question.
जी
As
Please
the
ask.
Pakistan is having weak data protection laws,
Hmm.
and the IT companies in Pakistan are facing a competitive disadvantage as compared to the India. If yes, then sir, what measures can be taken to overcome the gap,
जी
address
a
the gap?
very excellent question. Gilani, can you please go to the next slide where there is a comparison between regional comparison, India and Pakistan? Um, it's on. Okay. So it's right in front of you. There's a slide that we have shared. If you can see the comparison, the IT exports of India, it's basically somewhere around. Again, please do correct our understanding. I would really request the viewers if they could check it and let us know that if our working is all the data is basically available online. We compiled it ourselves, so there might be some element of error, but you can basically understand that 170 India's IT export is somewhere close to 178 billion. And Pakistan IT exports is only, it dwarfs to only 2.6 billion. And I guess EU's data protection, the total data protection fines accumulate somewhere around 3 to 4 billion. So you can understand from here. And the IT workforce, our IT workforce is just 600,000 plus, and theirs is 5.4 million. And companies, we only have 3,200 companies. So again, the question that what we can do is that, we first of all, we need to understand that it's a problem. First, you have to identify the problem, and then solutions usually do stem. So the problem over here is that there is lack of awareness, and I don't know, a lack of drive or thirst. And the state should recognize that there is a lot to do, not only in Pakistan but also internationally, if we give a decent ecosystem to these tech industries. So, if I may, I have a slight trivia and on a different tangent, and I would like to use this opportunity to explain that the GPS we use in our phone, global positioning system that we use in our phone, it is basically a product of United States military, their organization DARPA, which actually innovated and made GPS. But in 2000, in early 2000, they made it public so that all the tech industries of the world may use it. And now they are gleaming $3 to $4 billion per year from the use of GPS. So again, there was an awareness, there was trust, and they actually made they gave their product away for the tech companies to use and innovate upon it. So now, coupled with GPS, coupled with AI, and the remote transportation. So there is a lot to be done, but unfortunately, I don't know, maybe all the stakeholders need to sit together and try to find a way out.
Thank you for your insights, sir. Talking about the successful implementation. Sir, on that note, Systems Limited and TRG Pakistan have set great examples in successful implementation of the
Hmm.
data protection laws. So, what do you think that smaller IT firms can learn from the strategies of the Systems Limited and TRG
So,
Pakistan?
listen, TRG and systems are very big players. Okay, so they provide solutions. Again, I'm not a specialist. I'm a lawyer, but I do work in this industry, and from my own knowledge. And again, if someone belongs to the tech industry, we would be all ears to listen. And again, one should listen more when understanding these things and take the viewpoints of the tech giants and tech industry people as well. But as per my understanding, they actually did they complied with all this data protection scheme because it was their bread and butter, and if they didn't, they would be ousted, because all their clients, it was the need of the hour. They had to do it, otherwise they would go bust. So the smaller industries, what they should do is that they should amongst themselves, they should draw this policy that they would be compliant with these regulations, because if they self comply, then again they can participate and again they can work internationally. But the issue is that there is lack of trust, and since there is no regulatory government framework for this, so again, and these regulatory compliances, there are at times um, uh, a bit cost heavy. So again, you have to make this cost benefit analysis themselves. And the smaller scale companies, maybe they're not investing in it because it seems to be a bit expensive for them. But again, this the whole industry have to come together and devise some private solutions if the state is not coming for their help. And like always in Pakistan, when there's a saying that necessity is the mother of all invention. So if we're really vocal about it through this webinar, we're trying to raise this issue. And if this is being raised by the tech industries, the relevant ministers and senators or MNAs, they are basically forced to pass the legislation, then why not? If we can pass the 26th Amendment overnight, so I think the bill is already made, and it just needs voting in the parliament and intent. So nothing. I don't know what's stopping the people at the helm of affairs to not to enforce it and pass it
Uh,
into
thank,
a legislation.
Thank you for your thoughts, sir. But yet again, another question raises that building on what you just explained, that GDPR compliance is important and it impacts the innovation, tech innovation. Sir, what about the small firms? They are facing challenges of limited
Mhm.
resources. So, do you think it as a barrier or an opportunity?
I think everything is an opportunity, because you see that as I just said, that all this tech industry, it does not exist in a vacuum. So you need data engineers, you need all sorts of people. And again, as the saying goes, that you find the cheapest available options to get the work done. So workforce in Pakistan is actually really cheap. And again, outsourcing, there is a lot of outsourcing work which is being done by Pakistan. So even internationally, a lot of the tech support, it's usually in India or in some South Asian country, because it is economical for them. So again, we have the relevant resources. People are tech savvy. Again, first of all, even like if we can see that we could not even conduct a webinar properly due to internet issues. So these are things which the government basically provides this free market services, internet being one of them. So again, I would really want all of us, and especially the tech industry, to be really vocal about it and tell the people at the helm of affairs that how important it is, not only for the companies over here, but for the state of Pakistan. Because if we are not about to do anything about this, then how would we conduct business all over the world, and how would Pakistan pay its debts? So again, the solution lies right in front of us. It's just the intention which is missing. So if you go back to the previous slide, uh, the barriers.
Sir, can you hear me?
Gigi, now I can hear you, Sadia.
Sir, on that note, do you think that setting up industry-wide certification programs and knowledge-sharing platforms could help to tackle these challenging situations? And how can we begin to turn that vision into reality?
The training is very important. It goes hand in glove with innovation. So, for instance, in China, there are incubation after school. There is a mandatory requirement that even primary going school kids, they need to take any subject in terms of developing their soft skills. Be it may be coding, it may be arts and craft, anything. So even in school levels it should be encouraged. And again, training is very important. Private sector should creep into it. And again, in Pakistan a few years back, there was this theory of distributing laptops. Again, a very good initiative. But what is the government doing on that? And do we incentivize uh, tech industry in terms of training? Are there any competitions being held in the school, or for that matters in the universities? These things usually happen all over the world. That's how they basically inculcate the spirit of innovation and technology. So again, if the government is not doing it for some odd reason, I think we all amongst ourselves and the private sector should creep in, and they should conduct these seminars, webinars, and educate the people at large, because there is an
Sorry to
appetite.
interject, sir. Talking
Gigi,
about
please.
the data protection at national level, sir,
Okay.
I'm sure that the audience would also like to know about the PICA. So, what do
Okay.
you
Yes.
think, and how effective is PICA in addressing the data protection in Pakistan?
So, okay, if you can, I can't see that relevant slide, Mr. Gilani. If you can basically highlight certain sections of PICA. Yes, PICA is an important step, but again, as I said, it's like putting the cart before the horse. And it's administratively unworkable if you don't have the whole ecosystem. So what PICA usually does is says that during investigation, the data is to be protected. And for electronic crime, it has to be protected. So its scope is quite limited. If you don't have a whole scheme of data protection, then PICA is basically it's not even relevant, if I would add, because if there is no data protection mechanism, and there are no there is not an ecosystem. So how can PICA on its own work? We can't expect everything to be done by PICA, because as you can see, section 32, 39, 41, it basically gives an idea of how data has to be retained, but it is only for the investigation of that particular crime in the digital sphere. It does not operate in every parlance in our day-to-day working mechanism. For instance, let me give you an example. Pakistan is one of the most vulnerable state in terms of data breach. As you can see, in average in Punjab, in Lahore, if I may, there are at least around 80 to 100 FIRs a day for banking apps being hacked over here and data breach. So PICA is trying to resolve that,
On that
but
note,
in the first space, there is no data protection system. All our data, my, and everyone's data is available. There is no check and balance. What if you disseminate our banks or Facebook disseminates it to anyone else? There is no regulatory compliance. So again, Pakistan is, and on all majority of the third world countries, they are susceptible to this electronic warfare and cyber warfare, because they haven't implemented those systems. It's not technically illegal. So you criminalize the act, but the whole ecosystem is not available. So that is more important than having PICA.
Sir, on that note, how does PICA align with international frameworks such as GDPR in promoting anonymization to protect the privacy?
So listen, there is no concept of anonymization in Pakistan, if I may add. So anonymization is a concept for my for my viewers over here. So anonymization is something that if, for instance, I am working in a company and all my data, how have I been working, or for that matter, a company which has been working in certain area, all its data is usually available. And when you conduct business, everything is available. But if you don't anonymize it, meaning you don't basically guard it, so that data could be used by anyone. And again, it is the responsibility of the state or the jurisdiction in which that company operates, which makes it illegal for that data to be breached. But in Pakistan, it is non-existent. It's just like we are inviting Bill Gates, or for that matter, we're inviting Mark Zuckerberg to invest in Pakistan, and we don't have that incubation system. Why would he uh, open his industry or uh, tech office over here in Pakistan if there is no data protection scheme over here? It actually doesn't make any sense. All the data would be breached, because as I just said, it's a global environment, and a global world. A company is basically registered internationally, but it conducts businesses all over the world. Facebook or X and WhatsApp is being used by all, basically everyone who has a phone. They usually use WhatsApp. So it's actually very abhorrent that there is actually no semblance of its importance in Pakistan.
Sir, talking about the enforcement, what role does National Cybersecurity Agency plays in enhancing the data protection in Pakistan?
Only in terms of criminalization, this agency, and I think they're forming a new department. Presently speaking, FIA basically looks into these matters, but there is a recent amendment, and again, and I'm hearing that in 2015 there would be a new department or a new agency which would be taking the reins of that department. So yes, in terms of criminalization, it's very important, and thank God they're looking into it. But again, as I said, the system is not available. We are just addressing the symptoms. Data breach, cybersecurity is a system. It's a symptom. It's a symptom. The main cause is that we don't have data protection available in Pakistan. So it's just that we're inviting cyber warfare in Pakistan, and then we make policy, and then we have PICA to control it. But in the first place, our data is not even secured. There is no law to secure a data. So I hope I answer your question, and I would now like to invite my audience to ask relevant questions regarding this. Manur and Sadi, if you want to ask anything, please, you may ask one question, then over to the audience if they want to
Okay,
ask something.
sir, there's a recent case basically, in 2023, IMY case, which is basically a
Swedish
Swedish
case, yeah,
data
yeah,
protection authority, right?
yeah.
So in this case, the IMY ordered four companies, Coop, CDON, Tegens, Industry, and Tele2, to stop using the Google Analytics for the transfer of personal data to the US,
Mhm.
which is basically obviously the violation of GDPR rules. So my question
Mhm.
is, what specific violations are made when companies transfer personal data to other countries outside the European Union without sufficient safeguards?
So you're asking, can you come again? What are you exactly asking? What are the safeguards, or how could it be protected? Or can you please elaborate on that? What exactly are you asking in terms of this case?
Sir, asking in terms of the violations, basically. What
Okay.
violations are made when companies transfer personal data to countries outside the European Union without having sufficient safeguards?
It's very simple. It's very simple. Without going into the technicalities, it's, yes, it's a recent case, but it is basically happening. Since the GDPR came into vogue in 2018, as I said, Meta was fine, Facebook was fine. Even now, you know that with like WhatsApp, there is a other similar app. It's called, I think, Telegraph. It's made by Russians, again for data security and data protection, because under the Patriot Act in the US, for national safety purposes, those that data could be sifted by the state itself. So that's the issue as well. But coming back to your question at hand, so the thing is very simple, Sadi and Manu, that Facebook has all our data in terms of our choices and in terms of our buying patterns. Like TikTok has also introduced it. The world has really changed, that if you want to order something and if you want to buy anything, now you find advertisements on your on your Facebook and on your socials, and you go there, you post something, it basically all those algorithms, they pick it up, and then they use your your algorithms of your buying patterns, and then they sell it off. Even the elections, the last elections, the Cambridge Analytica, which I explained over to all my audience, uh, there is a debate that it basically hijacked the last US elections as well. So you can do anything with that data. You can even sell that data to hackers who will then basically hack your devices, hack Macs. So if there is no data protection, then you're just sitting duck out there.
Thank you so much for explaining that to me, sir. Since we are running out of time, so we'll move towards the question answers asked in the chat
Please,
box.
please,
So
please.
there is a question from Ram. With the recent leak at Nadra, where the civilians' data has been leaked, how do organizations deal with the data breaches, and what are the best practices for crisis management?
They can be, first of all, as I just said, there is a dearth of data protection in Pakistan. It is non-existent. We are basically catering to the symptoms. So these symptoms, they would keep on happening and recurring, because a person who is sitting in Transylvania or Estonia, or for that matter, anywhere across the globe, what jurisdiction does Pakistan have apart from calling Interpol and conducting their own research? At one moment, the system is used in Estonia. At the other moment, the system is used in somewhere in Indonesia. So the thing is, there is no ecosystem, as I've been repeating it again and again, and there is no system to make that organization or that tech company responsible, and there is no automation of safeguarding that data. And usually in tech companies, there is a data protection officer whose entire work entails that he has to see that everything which is coming to the company in terms of orders, in terms of their algorithms, in terms of everything, all that data is being protected. You know, there are data farms in Wisconsin in the USA. There's miles and miles of cold storage farms over there, that all the data there in physical hard drive, all that data is being safeguarded. So again, I'm not saying that हम यहाँ agriculture छोड़ के वो काम शुरू कर दें. I'm not saying that, but all I'm saying is that there should be some semblance of data protection, or else whether it be Nadra, whether it be any bank, we are because if there is no ecosystem, then we will only be catering to the symptoms. We have to see the core problem, which is the lack of a coherent ecosystem in this arena. I hope I answered that question. Guys, you may ask your questions. If any one of you wants to ask a question in Urdu, please feel free. It's not only limited to English. Please feel free to ask question in whatever language you're comfortable with, provided that I understand.
There's another question from Maha Jamal. We hear every other day that bank data or organizations' data are leaked. So, are there any laws to tackle or penalize such incidents or organizations?
In theory, yes, Pika. But as I said, factually, it is administratively unworkable. And in 2015, they're making another organization. Basically, they're revamping it. But again, as I said, the banks are not required to protect your data. Your data is actually shared to someone, some hacker who is not even in Pakistan. in one transaction, he or she, they take your money, they park it in another offshore account, and another second it goes out of the window. So there are a lot of administrative issues in how the investigation is being conducted by the Federal Investigation Agency. And again, due to the sheer volume and technical nature of this crime, the current system is incapable of tackling that. Because let's imagine if a bank had a system to protect your data, in the first place, that data wouldn't be breached. So, cyber warfare and cybercrime happens when there is no protection of your data. All your data is being given to insurance companies, to whatever, to whomever they want to give your information, because there is no protection. And then when your information is out, people can do whatever they want to with it. And clubbed with AI and all those technological advancements, it's very easy to con someone. Now with AI, even your voice could be cloned. And we all know that how these cyber crimes happen. They are very technical. And yes, people are made a fool, but it's the nature of the technology. So we have to be really critical and think outside the box to how to cater to it. And one solution is to have data protection.
Sir, Muram has asked a question: what ethical dilemmas arise in data storing and data sharing agreements?
This is very important, very important. So, what ethical issues he's asking? Can you elaborate? Can he personally, if he's listening, can you personally ask this question? What do you mean by ethical issues? Are you trying to say it is unethical to store your information? I think it's more ethical that your data is being kept private and it is not being shared. Don't you think it's the other way around?
Sir, Madi Altaf is asking, how does the National Cybersecurity Policy 2021 support both data protection and tech innovation?
And it's just a policy. Again, in Pakistan, it's a policy that environment would be protected, and now it's been under the amendment. It's now our fundamental right. But the question is it being protected? And again, our national energy policy says that energy prices should be brought down, and there should be it should be debundled. The distribution of electricity should be debundled, and there should be other market players who can basically generate and distribute and supply electricity. But as we know, due to the hegemony of a few discos, distribution companies in Pakistan, they don't tend to incorporate this, and hence the prices of energy keep on skyrocketing. The policy says otherwise, but on the ground reality, it is something entirely different. So policies are, I don't doubt their intention; they're really good, but without actual work in the field and without putting it into execution, policy is just a policy. What matters is what actually is happening. So we have a bill, we have a data protection bill. It is quite comprehensive, and yes, it will have a lot of teething issues like any other thing. But there is actually no intent to get it passed into legislation for some odd reason.
Sir, Ms. Maha has asked another question. Shouldn't there be tougher laws to penalize organizations if their data is breached?
Definitely,
Otherwise, there would be no protection and trust. As we see
definitely.
abroad, if there are such incidents, they get sued accordingly and there is accountability.
Exactly. With the accountability, thank you for this question. The accountability is the key over here. If you don't have any accountability, again, I don't want to go into a very hyper technical Austinian jurisprudence of commands backed by sanctions. But as we all know, that one follows the law because one of the reasons for following law is that they perceive that there would be a sanction or a threat if they don't abide by it. So if there is actually no culpability, then why the question arises, why would one follow it? So again, all the more reasons for
So,
passing
Mr.
this
Muram
legislation.
has added, such as Meta being accused of selling data on multiple occasions.
I say yeah, fined. They also got fined. As I said, uh, they were heavily fined. They were even subpoenaed by the, as I said, the Congress, the U.S. Congress. They asked Mark Zuckerberg very sharp questions, if I may, and it's available on YouTube. You guys should see that in terms of data protection and data breach. And as I said, they were heavily fined by European Union for data breach.
Sir Muran has asked, uh, the question is not on storing data, it is an essential part of having an online presence. But my issue is that mega tech companies tend to share those data to other companies, such as Meta
Exactly.
being accused of selling data on multiple occasions.
Exactly. So here comes now the data protection officer, the anonymization and pseudonymization of that data. Now here comes the part. So I'm aware of the limits in Europe. It's basically 72 hours. Within 72 hours of such data breach, the compliance officer, there are usually compliance officers in companies, so they have to report it, and if it is not rectified, then they are penalized. So all these things, again, I'm not saying that it solves all the problems, but again, all these are the teething issues which are always there, and yes, it has to be checked. And what happened with that data breach, they were fined. So they, and again, the nature of this field is such that it will evolve, the problems will evolve. I'm not saying that this issue would be completely resolved, but at least there is a way for checks and balances, like corporate compliances. At one point in time, companies could get away with whatever they could, but the corporate governance code made sure that there are checks and balances. Again, it evolved over time, and then again, it's still evolving. So even with the GDPR compliance, yes, you're absolutely right, and thank you for pointing it out that it's not about data protection; it's about whether they can sell it or not. So again, if the India is quite smartly, their scheme of their data protection law is such that they have made it a free moving commodity, and if you actually consent, then there is no breach. But if you specifically tell the organization or the company for with whom or for whom you're working, or if your data is with them, for instance, any app or any bank, if they have your information, if you categorically tell them that your data, any sort of data, your age, whether it's been pseudonymized, meaning that it's being used, for instance, my name is Ali, and the company is all storing all my information under a pseudonym of XYZ, and in whatever form it may be, it cannot be shared with anyone, then it will not be shared.
Sir,
So again,
um, talking about the data pseudonymization, how does data anonymization and data pseudonymization help businesses achieve compliance while maintaining the usability?
so it's basically requirement under GDPR law, Sadia. It's basically a requirement. What these two things superficially, and I am again dimming it for all my audience, what it basically means is that you are storing the data or information under a pseudonym. It means, for instance, that if you go to a website, there are a lot of websites which use AI to basically locate your ISP, your address, you name anything. It's like, it's actually very daunting, and one does not know where this ends. Basically, if you have uploaded your picture on Instagram or Facebook, through AI, it could tell where this picture was taken. And if you're using your phone or Facebook from your home, it could tell the actual address within meters, that where you have taken this picture. So what it does is that it basically masks the word, a very important word for all my audience is, you mask your identity, which is very important, because in this world of ours now it becomes easier and easier to con the other person using your data, because everything is available. If you want to con someone, you just need to, if you're smart, you can go check their socials, and you can check their habits, and they could con you. So again, the anonymization basically masks your identity, which is again very important.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like you to address this last question. How Miss Madiha Altaf is asking, how do weak data protection frameworks impact businesses?
Sorry, how can you
How
please
do
repeat?
weak data protection frameworks impact businesses?
Weak data. Okay. So basically, the shortest answer would be your tier would be limited. You won't get to the next tier. For instance, if you do mundane things, and if you're just providing uh, back end lower tier level solutions, and if you want to join the big guns and the industry giants, and you want to do something big, they won't give you any contracts. They won't work with you because you don't have any data protection, because those companies won't even work with you, because their laws, the jurisdiction in which they are operating, it's mandatory for them to only share data and work with those people who have data protection framework. So you will be ousted, your company would be ousted, until unless you incorporate those data protection regulations on your own. Like some of the few Pakistani tech companies, they're doing it on their own. They're spending a hell lot of money, and they're basically privately being compliant of those data protection regulations.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like you to address another question, and then in the interest of time, we will conclude in a few minutes.
जी जी.
Mr. Muram is asking, how does GDPR handle new technologies like AI and blockchain?
Again, a very good question. Now, when I was abroad, when I was doing my master's, basically the university from where I did my master's is known for tech. They actually had a subject in blockchain. They had a few seminars, but back in 2017-18, it was something new. So unfortunately, I'm no more in that jurisdiction. So I am not really privy to what's actually happening, because these things change in a lightning speed. And unfortunately, in Pakistan, this is not even regulated. The State Bank of Pakistan does not even officially recognizes blockchain as a means of as a medium of currency. So yes, it does. Like for instance, if I give you an example of blockchain, in blockchain, and I'm not very well versed in that, but I know it's the contours of it. You basically you mine that currency, and you basically store it. It is actually stored in hard drives. So if the data is being protected either privately or through a state, then it means it is saved. If it's not, then it could go haywire.
Thank you, sir. I think we have covered the topic. As we conclude, it's clear that the data protection is not just about the compliance, it's also about building trust and fostering innovation and safeguarding the digital future.
Can I
While
just add
frameworks,
over here?
yes,
Can I just sorry Sadia, but Maha Jamal, again, you are asking really good questions. In our combined chat box, there's a very important question that Maha has asked. Sadia, can you please read it out loud for the
sure,
audience? And I
sir.
would really
Uh,
want to
Ma-
address it.
Miss Maha Jamal is asking, in Pakistan, we see frequent banning of Twitters and different social media handles on and off. So often people use VPN to bypass such bans. Isn't this causing more breach and leak of personal data due to VPN's usage? What solution can be there to tackle such areas?
I just have one word to say: free speech, free speech, free speech. Obviously, it has to be monitored. I'm not saying that it should be a blanket free speech. But guys, the technology and innovation, it's the genie is out of the lamp, out of the box now. So you can't put it back. So what, I don't know, for some odd reason, the state is not I don't know if they have any other agenda. I don't want to comment on that. We are strictly dealing with a very technical and legal issue. But again, everything is not created or done in a vacuum. We have to understand the political realities in our country as well. But without going further to comment on it, uh, again, this is basically putting us back to stone ages. So yes, a VPN usage basically, and I guess today even in Lahore the net is not working properly because majority of the people are using VPN to bypass it. I don't know. And again, they when they use VPN, their ISP is masked, IP is masked. Technically, in Pakistan, it is illegal. PTA, again, it has been circulated for the past 2 and 3 days, but it happened in 2023 officially through a notification of Pakistan Telecommunication Authority. VPNs were banned. You could use VPNs, but you have to take permission from PTA in order to use it. You have to tell them in advance that your line of work requires VPN to be used, and then they will technically authorize you. I don't know how that works in Pakistan, but technically that's the law. And now there has been a recurrent issue of VPN now being again, it is banned. It was banned, but there was a mechanism, and again it is at 4 that VPN is being blocked. And yes, it does cause issues. It does cause a hell lot of issues because at times you can't even connect with your client who is somewhere in USA, or for that matter in Canada. If you're on the move, you can't use your WhatsApp. You have to turn on the VPN to call them or connect with them. So yes, it is causing issues, journal issues as well, and yes, data protection issues as well.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I hope we have covered the topic and I hope we have answered the questions asked in the chat box. As we conclude, sir, from this webinar, we have learned that data protection is not just about compliance, it's about building trust, fostering innovation, and safeguarding the future generation. While frameworks like GDPR have set global benchmarks, Pakistan stands at a juncture to craft laws and protect citizens, which requires collaboration of businesses, a legal community, and policymakers as well. Uh, thank you everyone for joining. And your engagement is a first step towards more secure and innovative digital future. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable insights. We will be sharing slides in the group. Please give feedback in the group and the Facebook page as well. Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
honored.
so
I'm
much.
honored. Thank you, participants. Thank you. Thank you, Manu. Thank you, Sadia. Thank you, Ahmed Gilani. And again, I would also like to give credit to Mr. Vakar Hassan in Czechoslovakia, who basically assisted us with certain facts and figures, which we couldn't get from Pakistan because we don't have any regulatory authority over here. So a lot of data which I shared with you was from European data protection offices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.